Hey, welcome back. I want to take a minute and talk about one of the most neglected vehicles that I own. Probably a lot of other riders might neglect yours and not even realize it. Motorcycle. Well, it's almost time to get them out, start riding around. And this one here, just got back from the shop, but put some new tires on it. I'd love to show you how to put tires on a motorcycle, but that's kind of a specialty thing. Unless you've got a machine and some real skill, I recommend you leave it to a shop to put them on. I did have them put some 90-degree valve stems on it because the way mine got neglected was that they were hard to check because the valve stems are, well, let me just show you. Valve stems are behind this rotor here, and they were straight, and they were up here in the spokes. And I tell you, it's not a good reason, but they were hard to check. So I had to put these 90-degree valve stems on. Apparently somebody's playing with my car keys. So I had to put this 90-degree valve stem on there, make the tires easier to check. Being low on air pressure, the tread got chopped up and ruined the tire. Back tire was good, air pressure wise, but I've just been riding it hard, spinning the tires, showing off, doing stuff motorcycle guys do, and wore the center tread out. So what I can do myself is change the oil, and in my opinion, that's where a lot of us riders kind of fall short. We don't change the oil in the bikes like we do in our trucks. Also, we pull the air filter off and make sure it's clean. This bike happens to be liquid cooled, so I'll check that. It's also a shaft drive, so I'll check the oil in the rear end. So down here underneath the motorcycle, we're going to locate the drain plug. And it's best to have a motorcycle jack to do this, although that's not required. Don't let that deter you. Here's the drain plug for the motorcycle, and what you don't want to do is put the jack underneath that because you're going to have a pan down there to catch the oil. Up here is the oil filter. What the hell is that? Got a freaking stick in my motorcycle. All right, we'll get rid of the stick. I wonder how long that's been there. So, back to the jack. You don't want to put the jack under the drain hole or the oil filter because you're going to have to get those off. And it's going to have to go into a pan. You don't want to have the jack in your way. Now, one of the things you want to look at is your drain plug. Most of the modern drain plugs are magnetic, which means they catch little pieces of metal. And this here, you can see it's got some grayishness to it, which means I've got wear in the motor, but that's fairly normal. This bike is a 2009, and so you would expect a 2009 13-year-old motorcycle might have some wear. If you find any chunks of metal on this, there's some serious trouble. You need to start looking at that. If you pull it out and it looks like a dandelion ready to let the seeds go, you need to start looking at where all that metal is coming from. All right. The other thing you want to look at is this oil filter mount up here. Let's see if I can get my hand in there. Make sure that the rubber gasket off of the old oil filter is not stuck to that. That's a problem. A lot of times it gets missed. If the rubber ring off the old oil filter is stuck to this, it doesn't look totally abnormal when you take it apart. But when you put it back together, the double seal, the old seal and the new seal together will fail. Now I've got a little curiosity up here. I got some red stuff up there, and I'm kind of curious what that is. Feels like old hard sealant. All right. I've never noticed it before. It's not terribly concerning. It is just chipping off. It might just be from where they put the stud into the engine block, and I've not noticed it before. All right, so now the oil's out of the bike, the oil filter's off. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let it sit here and drain for about an hour. While we're waiting on the oil to drain, we'll go ahead and take the air filter apart. This is a little bit of a convoluted process on the Suzuki Boulevard. There is a band clamp in here, screw there. You drop the filter box, and then there's 4 or 5 more screws to take the air filter element apart. A couple hoses and wires in the back. At any rate, like I said, it's a little bit of a convoluted process, which is why I don't do it so often. This is a relatively expensive element, and it's a lot like the K&N filters. The dealership recommends just blowing it out. It's much wider on this side than it is on that side. It does have a little bit of fuzz in here. We're going to blow it out and put it back together just the same. Like I said, it's a little expensive. Well, there it is all back together. I kind of get the feeling I might have got out of frame a little bit. Probably should fire the camera guy, but how do I fire myself? Now, on the Suzuki Boulevard, the coolant gauge is hidden underneath this cover right here. There is the coolant tank on the motorcycle. It should be between the low and the full. And it's all the way down here below the low. So there again, 2009, it's hard to check, so we don't check it. And now it's low. All right, so here we are, just a little bit over full. We're gonna call that good. It's literally 2 cups of antifreeze that's used over 13 years. I think we can chalk that up to evaporation. I'm not a big fan of chrome, but I'm gonna take a hot minute to put a shine back on these bolts here, just because they're hard to reach once everything's together. All right, that's enough of a shine. All right, so when you're putting this new filter on, it doesn't have to go back on super tight. You notice I use channel locks to get the last one out. Getting them off is a little different to getting them on. What you want to do, though, is put a little bit of oil on that seal right there, and the used oil will do just fine. All right, so what we were saying was hand tight will do just fine. Hopefully you've got a decent grip. If you don't have a decent grip, then a tool. You'll need to get a tool. Ugh. All right, we've cleaned off the oil plug. We need to get some wrenches on that. Now there is most likely a American torque spec for this motorcycle, but we're going to go with the German torque spec. Everybody know what that is? If not, let me explain it to you. It's called Gutentite. That there is Gutentite. It won't fall out. Now we're ready to put oil back in it. This motorcycle does not have a dipstick. It has a sight glass down here, and it's well hidden underneath this case. I won't lie to you. Checking the oil and putting service in this bike is one of my least favorite things about this motorcycle. If you got a bike with a dipstick, you're so much ahead on servicing with a dipstick. This motorcycle holds 3.6 quarts of oil. So come on up here and see if we can watch that sight glass. And keeping in mind that the filter is going to use a little bit of oil, I'm not going to stop in the middle of the sight glass. I'm going to go ahead and fill her all the way up. All right, well that there is about 2/3 of the way up the sight glass. Sight glass has got frosted on the inside. I really dislike this particular feature on the motorcycle. But in order to fix that, you got to take this entire cover off. In order to get the cover off, you got to take the exhaust pipes off. And my God, it's just a hassle. So I did run a little bit of oil cleaner in it, trying to clear that up, and apparently it did not work. At any rate, we're going to start it up and get some oil circulated around. All right, I've put all 4 quarts in it, which is more than it should take. The sight glass appears to be, my best estimation, about half full. Kind of disappointed. I'm just going to have to take this motor apart and fix that, because I don't think I can live with not knowing how much oil's in the engine all the time. All right, on a shaft drive motorcycle, you've got a gearbox just like you'd have in a vehicle, car or a truck. There's a drain plug down here. There's an oil fill hole right here. This is fairly simple. Pop this plug out. We're going to make sure that the oil level is up to this hole. All right, I'm going to zoom this in there and hopefully you can see it good. The oil level is up to the bottom of that hole, which means this differential is full. That's a good sign. Look at the plug. There doesn't seem to be any metal hanging on it. Most of these plugs all have some sort of magnetic quality to them that captures metal. If you got a lot of metal or big chunks of metal, that's an indicator there's something going on. All right, once again, we're going to use the German torque spec, Gutentite. Call it good. All right, so we're done checking everything I said I was going to check before we go riding. I'd like to point out this stand the bike is sitting on. That is a Harbor Freight motorcycle stand. They were about 80 bucks when I bought this one. It's a good investment if you have a bike that requires a lot of work. It doesn't require a whole lot of maintenance. Like I said, this one's been running for 13 years. I change the oil in it every year. The air filter gets blown out every year. I check the differential fluid. And with the exception of tires, this bike has never needed anything much more than a valve adjustment. And even then, I'm not sure it needed it, but I was unhappy with the fuel mileage it was getting. And after the valve adjustment, it seemed to do a little better. Now when you go to lift the bike off of this stand, make sure that your kickstand is down. You let it down without the kickstand, you're going to have to hold the weight of this bike up when it hits the ground. Hold this back, crack it, and let it down slow. Whoop. Yeah, see I let it down too fast. Gotta raise it up, raise the lever, go down slow. Come on, baby. There we go. And the bike will lay right over on the kickstand. All right. On this one here, I gotta stand the bike back up to get the jack out from under it. But there she is. That is my spring maintenance ritual. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this, go ahead, leave me a comment and subscribe.